In today's class of urban transportation and planning, we will quickly recap what we have done in the previous class. So, in the last class, we have seen or we have discussed what urban transportation planning, the subject, is all about. Then, what is the role of transportation in society, and what or how a civil engineer can contribute towards transportation engineering. So in today's lecture, we will be seeing what urban transport planning is. So in this, you will see what urbanization is, then what is urban class group, then what are the transportation problems and identification of the problems, then what is the impact of transportation. So here actually we will be discussing about the impact of urbanization. Then what is urban transport system planning process. So these topics are covered under module 1. So in last class, we had a brief discussion on what urbanization is all about. So it actually means there is some proportion or there's some increase in proportion of people who are living in towns and cities. And why it might be happening? It is happening because people are moving from rural areas to urban areas. And that is actually because of change in lifestyle, better education, better facilities. So if you look at this data, which is provided by United Nations, you can see how different continents or and also worldwide how world population is now living in cities. So here this is a percentage of all these are percentage of the population that is living in urban areas. So in North America, if you take 75% of the population was living in urban area in 1990, and in 2014 it was 81%, and their projection for 2050 is 87%. So let us take the case of Asia. So in 1990, 32% people were in urban area, or in the population, 32% of people were living in urban area. In 2014, it was 48%, and the projection is 64% by 2050. So this 64% can be either because people are moving from the rural to urban, or the rural areas are also getting urbanized, right? So this graph also we have seen how the trend is moving, right? How the population is changing from 1952 and how it has been projected to 2050. So we have already seen what are the causes of urbanization. It is natural increase of population. So that can be because of decreased death rate as well as increased birth rate. So that is actually happening why because of change in lifestyle or because of better lifestyle. Then you have urban to rural migration because of economic development or economic growth and development and due to technological change. And then possibly there can be some social disruption that was happening in the rural area that was forcing people to come to urban areas. So usually we see people, when they come to urban areas, you understand that the neighbors surrounding you are least bothered about where you're going, what you're going, and there is least conflict or disruption that is coming to your lifestyle. Now, there are again two factors that usually contribute for urbanization. One is the pull factor, another one is the push factor. So, in pull factor, you have employment opportunities and educational facilities, whereas in push factor, poor living conditions, then lack of facilities are pushing the people to come to urban areas. So, also we have seen what traffic congestion is. So, what is actually traffic congestion? There can be some delay, right? The vehicle movement is being slow, and also there is long vehicle queue, right? So, if you look at the case of Bangalore, so Hebal is a good example to show what traffic congestion is all about, right? So, what are the negative effects of traffic congestion? You get delayed, and this can result in what late arrival for employment or to your school or college, and then even no we get late to attend meeting, resulting in what? Resulting in loss of job or resulting in loss of business. Then you have personal loss. Sometimes you miss attending functions, and also in case if you're late to any job or your class, there are chances of having disciplinary action. And since you are waiting for long time in the traffic, this result in wasted fuel, and which result in what? Which result in increased pollution and vehicle maintenance, right? Then there is higher chance of collision. Why? Because there is tight spacing in congestion. Then how can traffic congestion be reduced? That can be reduced by looking into options of carpooling and also thinking about more opportunities in public transportation. So, along with urbanization, now the key term that is trending is counter urbanization. So, what might be counter urbanization? People tend to move out of cities to the surrounding areas, and this usually happen in more economically developed countries. So, you have lower economically developed countries, or the countries are developing and more economically developed countries. So this counter urbanization is people tend to lose the charm in the urban areas and they look back on coming to outskirts of the city. So if you look at Bangalore now, you can see how the places surrounding Bangalore are being developed. So those who are from Bangalore will know how the city was maybe 20 years back, or if you speak to your parents or to your seniors or to elders, you can find out how the city was maybe 20 years or 30 years back and how now the point of city is being shifted, right? The then known rural area like Lanka are quite developed now. So people used to say a term like the city is being shifted. Right now, in the city, which was the city in like 30 years back, is not having enough scope for expansion. So people looking for other areas. So why this counter urbanization is occurring? So now most of us own a car. So people are mobile. People can travel. So it doesn't matter where they are working or where their home is, right? Now they have better opportunities to commute. So that lead to what? That lead to increase in commuting. Then there is growth in information technology, wherein people can also opt for work from home. Now this pandemic has resulted in people can work from home. So most of the youngsters or most of them opt work from home, which again result in what? Which again result in lesser travel, right? So it doesn't matter whether they work in urban area and they stay in rural area, right? The information technology is developed so people can work from anywhere. Then also urban areas are becoming highly increasing unpleasant to live, mainly because of the pollution. Then more the people, more the crime, more the people, more the traffic congestion. So people usually consider urban areas to be more unpleasant, or are increasingly unpleasant place to live. Then people tend to move out of the urban area when they retire. So after their work, most of them are staying in the urban area. Why? Because their work calls. So they tend to move away from the urban area once they retire. And now also, if you see, new business parks are popping up around or on the edges of the cities. So people can now live on the outskirts of the city to be near where they work. So that is a good example of Hiranandani project that has been developed in Devanahalli. So an IT park is coming up there. So obviously people, prefer to live on the outskirts when their workplace is also near. So now let's quickly see what urbanization has took us. It's a small fact check. So if you see, to have or to achieve 1 billion urban dwellers, it took 10,000 years. But to get the second billion urban dwellers, how many years was taken? Only 25 years. So this is the rate of urbanization that has been currently experienced. So if you see, Britain is experiencing urban. So you have two terms here: urban growth and urbanization. So urban growth is nothing but cities are growing. Okay, but urbanization is what? The proportion of people that is living in urban area. So Britain is experiencing urban growth. That means many of the cities are growing, but not urbanization. That means the proportion of people living in urban areas are not increasing. Why? Because all the cities are developing. Urbanization occurs when only one part of that entire state or entire region is developing. So people tend to move there. So in urban growth, what happens? The entire place is getting developed. So more cities are growing. So people are not moving to one place, but the place that they are staying is actually getting developed. So we'll just quickly see a video on how India is becoming more urban.
Recent decades saw an astounding expansion of India's population beyond the billion mark. Still, mostly young and poor, Indians have the momentum to keep on growing fast. As India keeps expanding from its 1.2 billion people today, it will outpace China in little over a decade, becoming the most populous country on Earth. India is also crowded. Much of the north, especially, is densely packed with people. The competition for land, for farms, for housing, for factories among a sixth of the world's population is growing intense. Yet Indians have just 2.4% of the world's landmass to squeeze onto. On average, some 382 people are packed onto each square kilometre of territory. To enjoy the world's average population density, Indians would need a country more than 5 times larger, land the size of Russia. For now, Indians remain an unusually rural people. 2/3 of the population still live in villages, broadly defined. The great rush to the cities has not properly got started yet. Not everyone in a village makes a living from a farm, but many still do. Roughly half of all Indians, especially in the poorer north, still rely on agriculture to survive. But all this is beginning to change, and fast. Over the years, India has seen several massive cities grow. It'll soon have many more, and much bigger ones. As people get richer and better educated, they increasingly want jobs in offices, shops, call centers, and factories. That means more urban life. By 2030, an extra 250 million people are likely to have moved to India's towns.
So here you can clearly see how urban population has been changing from 2008 to 2030.
Towns and cities. But that means overcoming a huge problem. It generally builds and runs urban spaces badly. Far too many people already live in slums, and tens of millions more will join them there. India needs good, cheap, healthy, and central housing for its poor. India's cities are dreadfully polluted. In a few big cities like Delhi, air quality improved in the past decade thanks to limits on car and bus pollution. But smog is now coming back. Take the most basic needs, access to a toilet. Even in bigger cities, many lack a safe, hygienic latrine. Move to smaller towns, and even access to a basic pit latrine can be rare. City dwellers also too often struggle to find safe drinking water, reliable power, or transport. Still, a few examples of success exist and could be replicated. One hopeful corner is the booming city of Surat in the western state of Gujarat. 20 years ago, it was known for dirt, disorganization, and a reported case of plague. Now it's well run, clean, with public services like rubbish collection, done by efficient companies. Though the city population is growing by 5% a year, the fourth fastest in the world, a capable municipality gets every house connected to piped water and proper sewage. Bus rapid transport, new flyovers, and a metro system are coming up which speeds traffic. Not
The development of Surat from 1990 to 2011 will be an interesting case study in our subject. So that case study will be discussed maybe in the next class. So we'll see how Surat has developed from 1990 to 2011.
not too long from now, Surat will be bigger than London. If it can get things right, so can the rest of India.
So in this slides, we will see how traffic congestion or how urbanization is being picturized nicely by using cartoons. So here I think it's been visible to you. So here two ladies are commenting that isn't it nice to see children cycling to school? So here you can see one of them has been cycling over the pool of cars, right? So here, this person is saying that nothing's better than relaxing on a beach. But what if I can ever get there with this traffic congestion? Right. So he's looking forward to relax in a beach, but he or she doesn't know when he might be reaching the beach after all this traffic congestion. So here, all of them, see, you can see how many cars are there, and in each car there are only one individual. It's the same cartoon. So here, all of them are saying that why, at least if these people would just take the bus, I could be home now. So all of them blame others. Like, why don't they take a bus? Or why don't they depend on mass transit system? So all of them are cribbing. So here you can see all of them are cribbing that why he or she couldn't take a bus. But why are they not taking a bus? Right. So here again, it's been no got from Krista Taylor account from Twitter. So here they're going to present the report. So the panel members or the meeting, the members that has to attend the meeting have not arrived, and that lady is saying that maybe they are stuck in traffic. So here they're going to address an issue on traffic congestion or road congestion, but wherein these people have not even reached for the meeting due to traffic. So this is again a person. This can be considered as an Indian scenario because you can see an auto over here. So this I got from Deccan Herald, Metro Life. So here you can see this person is calling at the office and saying, horrible traffic jam, so I'll be coming a bit late for the meeting. So he's telling that, okay, we are waiting for you, make it fast. But the manager is also stuck in the traffic. So here this cartoon clearly says how urbanization or how the radius of the urbanization is being developing. So here, maybe years back, megatropolis was 50 kilometers away. Then it was 30 kilometer. Now it is only 10 kilometer. So these people are going to city. So this two people, these two are saying that we are waiting for the city to come to us. So this again on Earth Day or on Environment Day, you take the trees with you, you carry plants with you, and you say that plant a tree for Earth Day. But look at the vehicles surrounding and look at the pollution that has been there. So we only spread the message, we don't act on the message, right? This is again, there is a lane for bike. So it's a special rights lane. So this person, this boy is saying that, Dad, I wish we cars also got a bike lane so we could also go fast. So now these people who are depending on bikes are having some privileged class, right? So these are actually interesting cartoons. So you get n number of cartoons or n number of depictions on how urbanization and traffic congestion is about. And I think you guys are also experienced in traffic congestion and you can also make better cartoons. Okay, so now we will quickly see what are these urban transit problems. Transit is nothing but movement. So here the main problems are traffic congestion and parking difficulties, right? Then you have longer commuting time, then public transport is inadequate. Okay, then you have difficulties for non-motorized transport. That means people who are there in bicycle and people who are walking. So whenever you are in your car, you find someone going in cycle and or someone who might be walking. So the importance that you give for that non-motorized transport is really different. Then you have loss of public space, right? Whenever you require or whenever you feel that the capacity of the highway is not sufficient to hold these many vehicles, what is the next alternative they have? They're going for planning, they're going for expanding the highway. So how that will be done? That is usually on the cost of public space. And usually in most of the public spaces where you have, it becomes like a parking lot as well. Then there is high maintenance cost that can be there both for the vehicle as well as for the road, right? You've already studied highway maintenance as a topic in your highway engineering subject. So you know what highway maintenance costs about. So you have high maintenance cost in both highway as well as for the vehicle. Then there is environmental impact and more energy consumption. Then there are concerns about accidents and safety. Then land consumption and then freight distribution. Freight, I have already told, it is nothing but what it is, goods transportation or the distribution of goods. So next we'll quickly see what urban transport system planning processes. So in this, the 3 points that has to be studied are, you have to first identify what the problem is, Then you have to identify the need. Then solution is being generated, and then the solution is being analyzed. So for any good long range planning practice, this is how it has to be done. First, you should be having vision and goals. Then the objectives has to be laid. Then you should be having the problem identified. Then when the problem has been identified, you have to look in for what several alternate solutions. From this alternate solutions, from all these solutions, alternatives or solutions that you have, you do analysis and then you evaluate. So after this analysis and evaluation, plan is being approved. So after the approval, what has to be done? The program is being developed. So here program is nothing but urban transportation system. Then you have initiative, development and operation. Then monitoring has to be done. You just don't, place a system there, or you just don't plan the process and then develop it. Later you have to monitor. So in a highway perspective, you have what you have maintenance coming up, right? And then with the maintenance, you again have your vision and goals. Maybe after 20 years or after 10 years, you again look into the vision and goals. Then again look into the objective. Then again you identify the problem. So this is how a typical good long range planning practice will look like. See, transportation planning is nothing but the application of both science and art. So I have told you transportation engineer, he or she or transportation planning is not done by an individual. It has to be a contribution from the government agency, from the public sector, and from the private sector. So the judgment should be what? Should be coupled with the technical elements. Just because so if you are going to propose a transportation or a system, and you have three different alternatives. So you will not just look into one alternative because it is cheap. You have to look at its technical elements as well. So any judgment that you have to undertake should be coupled with what? Coupled with its technical elements as well. And after that, a meaningful decision has to be taken. So the key aim of this transportation planning is to develop what? To develop a transportation infrastructure facilities for the community. Okay, and the purpose is what? You have to estimate the present and the future travel demand of an area. And then a plan has to be prepared which will ensure what? Ensure the safe and smooth movement of all types of traffic. The system that is being developed should not concentrate only on the four-wheelers or only on the two-wheelers or only on the public transport. It has to consider both motorized and non-motorized. In motorized, it has to give preference for the public transport system, and then for the four-wheelers, two-wheelers, even for the pedestrians as well. So transportation plan is actually the most important and permanent feature for any physical planning of a city, right? Anything that you develop in that city depends on its transportation plan. So it is something which is permanent. You just cannot, have the plan, have it only for 2 or 3 years. It has to be important and it has to be permanent. And that actually defines the growth of the city. So the key features that has to be considered are transport planning, or the transport should be integrated with the land use. So land use, we will see in the next section what are the different land use that you have in any city. So mainly you have for recreation purpose, you have for industrial purpose, you have for educational purpose, right? So the industry will not be located at the center of the city. Education sector will not be located at the outskirts. Even hospitals or the medical facilities will not be located at the outskirts, the park, right? Then places for religious purpose. So this transportation plan that has been developed should be well integrated with the land use of that area. Then transportation plans are actually influenced by what? By the capital entering countries or the institution. So if you have to develop a plan, it has to depend on the economic capacity of that area or of that city, right? Then the transportation planning should be sustainable. And also there should be provision for pedestrian and non-motorized vehicles. So these are the 4 key points that has to be remembered when you're developing a transportation plan. So this clearly depicts what is actually happening with the transport planning and what is actually supposed to be proposed. So here you can see here there is high volume of people and low volume of car. So the priority is being given mainly for the four-wheelers, then the public transport, and then non-motorized transport, and then the pedestrians. Right. So this is the current approach that has been planned, which has been no, which has been considered. That is, it is car or vehicle-oriented approach. But what should be? It should be actually an inverted triangle. People-oriented approach should be proposed. That means higher priority should be given for pedestrians, then for non-motorized transport, then for public transport, and then for the vehicle or the car. Right. So here you can have four-wheelers and two-wheelers. Okay. So this is how it should be. High volume should be given for pedestrians, then for non-motorized, and then the least should be given for motorized vehicle. In that, again, motorized is the four-wheelers or the two-wheelers or maybe the private vehicles. Okay, so this is how the approach should be. But the approach that is being practiced now is what? It is mainly car or vehicle-oriented approach. So this can be well achieved by a good urban transport planning process. So the problem has to be identified, what actually the problem is. And do you think that the problem is going to be same throughout all the cities? No, it will be different. In the same city, depending on the region, the problem that will be there, will be totally different. So the problem should be defined, then why or whether this planning or whether a system development is required actually. So that need has to be identified. And then once you develop the solution, what you have to do, that solution has to be analyzed and evaluated. So now to quickly have a recap or summary of the class, we can quickly see what we have seen, what urbanization is, then what is counter-urbanization, then what is urban transit issue, and then what urban transport system planning process is all about, right? So now we'll quickly see a video on how cities have been developed.
Today, more than half of all people in the world live in an urban area. By mid-century, this will increase to 70%. But as recently as 100 years ago, only 2 out of 10 people lived in a city, and before that, it was even less. How have we reached such a high degree of urbanization, and what does it mean for our future? In the earliest days of human history, humans were hunter-gatherers, often moving from place to place in search of food. But about 10,000 years ago, our ancestors began to learn the secrets of selective breeding and early agricultural techniques. For the first time, people could raise food rather than search for it, and this led to the development of semi-permanent villages for the first time in history. Why only semi-permanent, you might ask? Well, at first the villages still had to relocate every few years as the soil became depleted. It was only with the advent of techniques like irrigation and soil tilling about 5,000 years ago that people could rely on a steady and long-term supply of food, making permanent settlements possible. And with the food surpluses that these techniques produced, it was no longer necessary for everyone to farm. This allowed the development of other specialized trades and, by extension, cities. With cities now producing surplus food as well as tools, crafts, and other goods, There was now the possibility of commerce and interaction over longer distances. And as trade flourished, so did technologies that facilitated it, like carts, ships, roads, and ports. Of course, these things required even more labor to build and maintain, so more people were drawn from the countryside to the cities as more jobs and opportunities became available. If you think modern cities are overcrowded, you may be surprised to learn that some cities in 2000 BC had population densities nearly twice as high as that of Shanghai or Calcutta. One reason for this was that transportation was not widely available, so everything had to be within walking distance, including the few sources of clean water that existed then. And the land area of the city was further restricted by the need for walls to defend against attacks. The Roman Empire was able to develop infrastructure to overcome these limitations. But other than that, modern cities as we know them didn't really get their start until the Industrial Revolution, when new technology deployed on a mass scale allowed cities to expand and integrate further, establishing police, fire, and sanitation departments, as well as road networks and later electricity distribution. So what is the future of cities? Global population is currently more than 7 billion and is predicted to top out around 10 billion. Most of this growth will occur in the urban areas of the world's poorest countries. So how will cities need to change to accommodate this growth? First, the world will need to seek ways to provide adequate food, sanitation, and education for all people. Second, growth will need to happen in a way that does not damage the land that provides us with the goods and services that support the human population. Food production might move to vertical farms and skyscrapers, rooftop gardens, or vacant lots in city centers, while power will increasingly come from multiple sources of renewable energy. Instead of single-family homes, more residences will be built vertically. We may see buildings that contain everything that people need for their daily life, as well as smaller, self-sufficient cities focused on local and sustainable production. The future of cities is diverse, malleable, and creative, no longer built around a single industry, but reflecting an increasingly connected and global world.
In the previous video, you have seen how cities were developed. So this is an interesting video to see how 5 Indian cities are known for worst traffic jam. So it's only 5 different cases. So you can just glance through and then we will conclude the class. Most of you can easily relate. So Bangalore, the main problem is the increased pedestrians and narrow, poor quality roads are actually tarnishing the city's reputation. So average one-way travel time is 48.68 minutes. So you can see how the traffic congestion is looking like. Okay, so that's all about today's class. So in next class, we will see what are the urban transportation elements and then how mass transit system improves or how it can reduce the impact of urbanization.